that says he's an Aborigine. Not because he is an Aborigine, just because he just wants to write on the paper and say that he is. Now he gets the benefits of whatever America was giving out for Aborigines. All right. Let's get it. Paying to play Indian. The Dawes Rose and the legacy of $5 Indians. Paying a commissioner $5 could get you an opportunistic white person on the Dawes Rose 125 years ago, which still causes problems for tribes today. It may be fashionable to play Indian now, but it was also trending 125 years ago. And people paid $5 a piece for falsified documents declaring them native on the Dawes Rose. The Rose, this is like where they have a count of everybody that's Native American. That's what the Rose is. These so-called $5 Indians paid government agents under the table in order to reap the benefits that came with having Indian blood. Mainly white men with an appetite for land. $5 Indians paid to register on the Dawes Rose, earning fraudulent enrollment in tribes along with benefits inherited by generations to come. So they were able to get enrollment to be a Native American within these tribes. So, say you wanted to be a Choctaw, right? You just signed a piece of paper. Now you're a Choctaw, pay a little bit of money under the table. Hey, you go a couple dollars right quick. Give them $5. Like, you think of $5 as being a little bit of money, right? Today is a little bit of money, right? $5. But you know how much $5 was in right around the 1900s?
I'm trying to get this real quick. I'm trying to figure out. I'm saying at least what, 50,000?
No, it wasn't that high. It wasn't that quite that high.
Oh, okay. Dropping down to 5,000.
No, it wasn't anywhere near that, but it was around $200 that they were paying to get it, right? But of course, their registration for them to pay that amount, like what the article said, they paid under the table. So obviously, the cost probably was even higher for somebody that was Native American to do it, because they paid them under the table to get it, right? So, and it gave them enrollment for generations, right? These were opportunistic white men who wanted access to land or food rations. So they was able to get food and land. They was able to get all of these different things because they had like a little act or whatever that basically was supposed to give, what's the word? Get a Native Americans reparations to some extent, right? And basically, they didn't give it to them. They gave it back to the white men. The white men were supposed to be giving it to Native Americans, but they ended up coming right back to them, right back in their pockets, right? These were opportunistic white men who wanted access to land or food rations, said Gregory Smithers, associate professor of history at Virginia Commonwealth University. These were people who were more than happy to exploit the Dawes Commission and government agents for $5, but willing to turn a blind eye to the graft and corruption. The Dawes Commission, established in 1893 to enforce the General Allotment Act of 1887, or the Dawes Act, was charged with convincing tribes to cede their land to the United States and divide remaining land to individual allotments. Their commission also required Indians to claim membership and only one tribe and register on the Dawes rolls what the government meant to be a definitive record of individuals with Indian blood. So they wanted to say we have a record of the Native Americans. They wanted them to cede all of their land. They was going to give it out individually to them, right? So say you owe this, you own this part, you own this part to whoever. They made them pick a tribe, so they couldn't like, because sometimes you might have a Choctaw, you might have a Cherokee, they might get together, but you had to assign yourself as one tribe, right? The Curtis Act, passed in 1893, targeted the five civilized tribes: Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole, forcing them to accept allotments and register on the Dawes rolls. The two acts, which came along during a period of murky social context after the Civil War, then white and black men were intermarrying with Native American women, aimed to help the government keep track of real Indians while accelerating efforts to assimilate Indian people into white culture, Smithers said. So he said white men and black men was getting Native American women pregnant. So they were having babies and all of that, right? So they wanted to try to keep who the Indians were. By 1865, African Americans and white Americans were moving into the Midwest, into the Indian and Oklahoma territories, all vying for some patch of land they could call their own and live out their Jeffersonian view of independence, he said. The federal government poured a lot of effort and energy into the Dawes Commission, but at the same time, it was very hard for Native American and American governments to keep track of who was who, right? So it was hard. So they say it was hard for them to keep track of who was who, right? So the Dawes Commission set up tents in Indian Territory, said Bill Webb, Director Emeritus of the Oklahoma Historical Society's Office of American Indian Culture and Preservation. Their field clerks scoured written records, took oral testimony, and generated enrollment cards for individuals determined to have Indian blood. That included authentic Indians, well said, but it also included lots of people with questionable heritage. Commissioners took advantage of their positions and enrolled people who had very minimum or questionable connections to the tribes. He said they were not averse to taking money under the table. Of course not, right? All right. The implications of such shady practices are enormous now, Smithers said. $5 Indians pass their unearned benefits to heirs who still lay claim to tribal citizenship and associated privileges. So now, even though they weren't even Native American, now they pass all these benefits down to they to their seeds, basically, to their children. They pass it down, right? Now we have people who are white who could trace their names back to the rolls used by tribal nations to ascertain who has rights as citizens, he said. That means we have white people who have the ability to vote at large. It means political rights. It means the potential to influence tribal policy on a whole range of issues. It means people have access to healthcare, education, and employment. The implications are quite profound for people who got away with fraud. So our oppressor has been committing fraud since forever. All right, somebody just joined in. Somebody just joined in. Who's all on the call? Okay, God, no sweat. No sweat. All right. So now these people that committed fraud, right? Now they, now they get benefits. They get money every month to take care of them, right? They get thousands of dollars a month. They get child. They get health care. They get all these stuff. They get housing. All of this, right? For nothing, just for signing on a piece of paper to say, "Hey, I'm a Native American," right? They get all of these benefits that the Native Americans don't even get. Right? They get education, employment, all of that for free. They get what Native Americans and Black people should have gotten, right? That's what we should have been getting. We should be getting those benefits, but found a way to give it right back to the oppressors, right back to them. That's why the general said, he said I would even fight for reparations because you know what's gonna happen. All they're gonna do is find a way to give those same benefits back to devils. They're gonna give it right back to them, and then you're not gonna have nothing. You think because they try to be woke now and all of this that they trying to help Black people. They exploiting you. That whole woke culture is just exploitation. They get more and more money out of you. They get them more wealthy and you even more poor. All right. On the flip side, while non-natives paid to play Indian, many authentic Indians who didn't trust the government chose not to register with the Dawes rolls at all. So they saying they didn't trust them because why would they trust them, right? Why they want them to register on this list? So if I register on this list, so what you gonna do? Come and try to take my land, try to kill me, right? Like this is just 30, 40 years from carnal slavery from Black people, right? And wars, the Native American wars, Seminole, they was fighting for 100 years with them in the Seminoles. And you think they just gonna trust them to write their name on this list, right? A genealogist at the Cherokee National Historical Society, that means people with legitimate claims to tribal enrollment and the benefits are now excluded. So the people that actually are Native American, if they didn't sign on this list at this time, they got excluded from ever being able to get on the Dawes rolls. Right? So now they can't get those benefits. But the devils, who really had nothing to lose but everything to gain, they went and signed it and got everything. Right? Native Americans are the only racial group defined by blood, Norris said. Even that was arbitrary. In the 1890s, siblings who talked to different commissioners emerged with different blood quantum. Because they didn't apply together, some of them have different blood degrees. In short, the Dawes rolls forever changed the way federal government defined Indians, and in many cases, the way Indians still define themselves. So that's how they got defined, is by this Dawes rolls. All right. In 1900, one woman registered on the rolls with 256 Cherokee blood. Lord said 256. Do you understand how little bit of Native American blood that is? That's so little you can't even find it. Right? 256 said. Now some enrolled members of the Cherokee Nation as little as 1/8 of 109. 1/8. I'm sorry. I misread it. One of 8,196 Indian blood. It confused me how they put it. So they got one of 8,196 of Indian blood, and they can get on this act. They get benefits. Like, you can't even tell the difference. You can't tell nothing of it. They say that they are Native American. They don't act Native American. They don't look Native American. All of that. You can't even see no traits of Native American in them at all. But they just say, I'm Native American because I signed on this paper. And they say, how much of it are you? You'll say 1,000. You'll say one of 8,196. That's what you are. That means your great, 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 great. Like, you talking in like 100 generations damn near. You know, 100 generations. And then you have a Native American blood in you. Just that little. All right. The Dawes rolls, even now, are a murky and very inaccurate gauge of Indian citizenship, he said. In the 2000 census, the number of people claiming Cherokee ancestry was 3 times that of official tribal enrollment. So it was 3 times of what they actually got on paper to say that people was Cherokee. And so there's that many people saying that they Cherokee, they're from the Cherokee tribe. That's what happens when the federal government established the rules, not the natives, he said. So the federal government established all of this. They didn't go to the natives and say, how do you want to classify yourself as being Native American? How do we classify it? They just said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And they gave it back to them, to themselves. Smithers has no estimate of the number of people who fraudulently registered on the Dawes Rolls or who laid false claim to Indian citizenship now. But $5 Indians did not represent an isolated case of appropriation. What that means is it didn't represent an isolated, which means a small number. It means it was not a small number that did it. So they're talking a substantial amount. You're talking 40% or higher. It may even be as high as 90%, but there's no way to really tell. He said what we had was simply white people claiming to be Indian, he said. They were early wannabes, just like we have today. $5 Indian is just another term for that. So they would just want to be what they are today. Like, you know how Halloween, they go dress up like a Native American or whatever. You know, they just want to be something because they don't have anything. They don't have a culture. They have nothing at all. So they want to be what everybody else is. They see like the Egyptians. They want to be Egyptians because they seen the pyramids. They wanted that. You seen them? They made what's that? They made the last samurais as a Caucasian man. So now they're the samurais. You go everywhere, they gonna be them. Whatever you see, you gonna always see an oppressor. They gonna be those people. They don't let the people that really are those people play those roles. They put in different media to say that it's them. All right. Let me see here. Any questions on that so far? You got a question on that?
Sure, everyone. This is Young Man Charles checking in.
I'm saying, Chris, how you two about?
I'm to say, how about you?
Y'all about your show record that. Let me see here. Let's see here. All right, no questions on any of that at all, or y'all good with that? All right. see here. All right. So that's how much it was at that point. So as of, like I said, they were able just to pay $200 and give membership into being a Native American. And that's what I'm trying to see how much they would get. But like I know they were getting, thousands of dollars a month. Let me see here. Okay. What was the Dawes Act? The Dawes Act, sometimes called the Dawes Severalty Act, or the General Allotment Act, passed in 1887 under President Grover Cleveland, allowed the federal government to break up tribal lands. The federal government aimed to assimilate Native Americans into mainstream U.S. society by encouraging them towards farming and agriculture, which meant dividing tribal lands into the individual plots. Only the Native Americans who accepted the division of tribal lands were allowed to become U.S. citizens. So it was basically just a way to uh, get them to register and say, well, you can become a citizen if you put your name on this piece of paper, right? This ended in the government stripping over 90 million acres of tribal land from Native Americans and then selling that to non-Native U.S. citizens. So it's another scheme to grab up more of their land. How did the Dawes Act affect Native Americans? If they accepted the allotment division, the Dawes Act designated 160 acres of farmland or 320 acres of grazing land to the head of each Native American family. These acreages were comparable to those promised by the Homestead Act, but there were important differences. There were important differences between the two acts. Tribes already controlled the land that was being returned to them at a fraction of the acreage. Like they already had the land. This was already their land. They had complete control of the land. So they made this act to take the land to give it to somebody else, right? But the promise was they're supposed to be individually broken up. So they were saying like, okay, this family has this amount of land. This family has this amount of land, right? In order to receive the go ahead.
I have a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Are you saying, based on what so I get for just, coming in, but it sounds like you're saying that as a group, they controlled, let's say, I'm gonna just throw a number out there, 100 acres. And now they're saying that the family, the Johnsons, they get 5 acres if they sign this paper. If they become a citizen of America.
Yep.
The Smith family can get 5 acres if they become a citizen, and so on and so forth.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. So, and they were promising them they were going to give it to those individual heads of household, give them land, grazing land, or agricultural land, right?
A lot of things.
No sweat. So that was the promise. But with them, you know how the devil does. Where they say the devil is in the details, right? The devil's in the details. So he basically took their land that they already had. So they said he was gonna break it up, but they didn't get they didn't get the broken up part of the land. Because like we read like in the last article, they said they didn't trust America no more. Remember, this is the same people that America gave diseases with smallpox and blankets because they needed blankets. They killed their buffalo where they make their blankets out of, and then they needed something to keep them warm, and they put smallpox in it. So then they got sick and died. And you think they go trust them? Come on now, these black people. You don't trust them like that. Go ahead.
Shalom, sir. Trooper Marshall checking in.
Hey, shalom, Christ. So yeah, they don't trust them people. These is black people. They don't trust them Caucasians. All right. So yeah, they already controlled this land, and they were getting back a fraction of the acres that they already had, because like Native Americans, they just set up and they did their own, they were community, they were communal. So there's certain people will go and do the grazing with the animals or whatever. There's certain people would do gathering of the crops. So it wasn't like the part of them of this land right here being owned by somebody was like foreign to them, because they didn't feel as though they owned the land. This was just their land that they had. So it wasn't like I owned the land, but then they started trying to play, into the American system of government after they pretty much decimated their whole tribes. So Native Americans were not accustomed. Go ahead.
So basically, the Gannite brothers, they had to become citizens on the land that they already owned just to get land, sir.
Yep. It was this act called the Dawes Act. You missed probably some of it. It was called the Dawes Act. They had this size like a registry. So they had to go and sign up on this registry to say that they were Native American. And then they were able to get some of that land that was given out to the 5 civilized tribes. So at this point, they didn't want to sign anything, because the one thing that about, like when it comes to oppressing people, right? What they did, this was before that happened, but I'm sure it happened in smaller amounts before. Otherwise, that's why they didn't trust them. But when Hitler massacred the fake Jews, he had them all first sign a registry, right? He had them all first sign a registry, told them good things this is going to benefit you to sign his registry, and then he started propaganda against them, and then that's what made them get taken over by the Nazis. So the same thing it was just a glorious thing to see, white on white crime. But the same thing they're known to do to us, they did it to each other during the time of the Nazis and the fake Jewish man. So that's the same thing they did to even Native Americans. They demonized them, made them look like they were savages through media and everything like that. Just said say all of the negative things about them, and then so that when those people went to go take them over, nobody batted an eye, because they said, oh well, they savages anyway. Why are we going to try to stop this from happening, right? So, all right, let's see here. And they were, they were not accustomed to this life of standardized ranching and agriculture. So it was all like standardized. So they kind of just went with the flow of it, with everything. With them, they wanted to be standardized. And then he said, and the lands allotted to them were often unsuitable for farming. So it was a lot of land that they gave them that they couldn't even grow anything on. A lot of these lands too that you don't even know that they gave to the oppressor, they gave them the better land that you can grow something on. A lot of these lands that you won't even know, but there's land owned by $5 Indians, right? AKA Esau, Edomites. There's lands owned by them that get a stipend every month from, like, say if a hospital decides to um, put their hospital on this land, they give them an allotment every month for this land. So they're getting all of these different benefits of having this land that's been in their families for generations. That's what they call generational wealth. You put a hospital, you put a mall, a shopping center, hell, a damn city be on this land. You get stipends from the government to be on your land. So they're getting all of those different benefits. So those $5 Indians are basically rich. But you wouldn't even know it. All right. In order to receive the allotment, Native Americans were required to enroll with the Offices of Indian Affairs, now known as the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the BIA. By enrolling, the individual registered themselves with the office, and the name went on the Dawes rolls, which assisted government agencies in determining whether or not the individual was eligible to receive their allotment. Although Native Americans controlled about 150 million acres of land before the Dawes Act, think about it, 150 million acres they had before this act. They lost the majority of it due to these allotment divisions and selling of surplus. So they gave them the part of land that they felt as though they should have. The rest they gave some out to the $5 Indians, the good parts of land to the $5 Indians, because they were bribed, right? The Native Americans didn't have the money to give to bribe the the city officials or whoever was over the Dawes Act. They didn't have the money to do that, right? And then in the rest of it, they sold to other people, and I'm guessing probably at a large discount, right? When tribes were paid for their land, they were underpaid. In addition to scat payment, Native Americans, like I said, they were underpaid for this land. Native Americans were not used to spending money and quickly spent most of what they received. Many were left with little land and little money. Inheritance also became an issue for many Native Americans who enrolled to receive land from the Dawes Act. When younger children received allotments, some did not know how to farm because they had spent their youth in boarding schools. So they forced them to go to these damn boarding schools to simulate them in society. So they didn't know how to even farm on this land. They didn't know what to do with it. Right? They in boarding schools that they pretty much forced them to go to. Right? Was they teach you how to, curtsy and all this BS, which side is the steak knife and which side is the butter knife go on. This is what they learning. Right? BS. They learning all of this stuff, right? Proper mannerisms of the devils, instead of learning how to actually cultivate their land and do something with it. When there were multiple inheritors, the size of the plots was too small to divide among children and still be suitable for farming. They gave them so little that once they tried to, give it out to their heirs, they couldn't, it takes a large amount of farmland to support a family, right? You can't just live off an acre of land. You understand that, right? You will die trying to live off an acre of land. This doesn't produce enough for a family. Maybe you personally, you might be able to do okay, but if you got kids, a wife, and all of that, you're not going to survive off an acre of land, right? And you got to remember, you got to have a way to, you got stuff that's in season. You're not going to be able to grow those things. You harvest things in the fall. So it's not going to be enough to last the whole year. All right. What is assimilation? Assimilation was a major goal of Native American policies on the late 19th century. Assimilation is the process of taking individuals or social groups and absorbing them into the mainstream culture. So this is what they did when they went to those boarding schools. They had them assimilate, teach them into the mainstream culture, which is their culture, which is, trying to look clean and be pure, but all in behind closed doors, you a damn devil, right? After families claimed their allotments, any remaining tribal lands were declared surplus. These lands were then sold off to non-native settlers. Additional legislation like the Homestead Act further encouraged white settlement of the West, and with that settlement came calls for assimilation. Many settlers viewed native practices as barbaric and primitive. So like I said, they started putting all of their native things, like we do the dance the dance that Native Americans do in a circle or whatever, they consider that barbaric and primitive, right? Seeing assimilation as the only option for coexistence. So not them coming to our culture, we gotta go into theirs. That's how we gotta coexist. Go ahead.
Yeah, Flock. Now you saying it was so heavy about the dancing, talking about brutal and violent and stuff like that, but they make millions of dollars. I was doing that same dance on TikTok and YouTube, stuff and Facebook, stuff like that. They ain't saying they violent out. They just making a profit out of it. Like, okay, this y'all what y'all want to do now. But back then, I'm talking about violent. Now I'm talking about, yeah, it's okay. No, they put their money in their pocket. Yeah, as long as they put their money in their pocket. They call it $5.
Yep. $5 damn Indians. All right. Let's go here. The U.S. government employed a variety of methods in an attempt to assimilate Native Americans, including the Dawes Act. The desired effect of the Dawes Act was to get Native Americans to farm and ranch like white homesteaders. An explicit goal of the Dawes Act was to create divisions. Look here. It was to create divisions among Native Americans and eliminate the social cohesion of tribes. Y'all get that, right? Break that down for me. Anybody on the conference call, just say Salaki, break that down for me.
All right, that's a question. I can break it down real quick.
Go ahead.
No, ask the question again.
Okay. An explicit goal was the Dawes Act, was to create divisions among Native Americans and eliminate the social cohesion of tribes.
Oh yeah, they're like the Dominican Republic. Okay, they pretty much, they put the image on TV that, light skin are better than dark skin. So they pay the lighter skinned people or some like close to that image, close to that image of beauty portray themselves as being brutal. This is the image. This is what a Native American should look like. But really, in terms that we both the same people. We call them the same fathers. We both different shades of brown. So they want to it can be the dark skinned people are look at that light skinned Negro, something like that. Look at that Drake, they grow used to beat up Drakes and shit in the world, something like that. They want to get that image from them. They want to pay money to divide them. We're all the same people, but we just have different skin complexions. And ain't no different than the slave act. And they went to they put different tribes of people in different parts of lands and stuff like that, and divided love some more of that, you know what I'm saying? Man, I ain't no Jamaican, I'm not a Mexican. So we all the same people, but you know different names. Well, I'm not a Mexican, I'm not black, or I'm not African, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? They, you know what I'm saying? Split us up, gave different names, paid us off for whatever part of the land is as the image of beauty. You know what I'm saying? Used to be lighter people, stuff like that. So basically, that's how they, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they just want to separate us. That's the main thing. They want to separate us because they don't want us coming together anymore. They don't want those 5 tribes to come in together and have power. Right? So it's just a way to really take them over. So and separate them out. So all right, let me see here. It has 6 goals, the Dogs Act. Breaking up of tribes as a social unit, encouraging individual initiatives, furthering the progress of Native farmers, reducing the cost of Native administration, securing parts of the reservations as Indian land, and opening the remainder of the land to white settlers for profit. That was the whole purpose of the Dawes Act. So it was right the Native Americans not to trust them. Because they know, like, they've been cheated out of their land so many times by signing some damn piece of paper. Right? They sign some damn piece of paper, and all of a sudden, you homeless. Right? This is what they did to them several times. That's why the term Indian giver was made, because they would have them sign something and then not disclosing what was really they were signing, and they said, no, we want our land. They called them Indian givers, they wanted it back, right? After they, quote unquote, signed it over. And you see this, they wanted to keep them divided and encourage individual initiatives. Do you understand how powerful that is? Let me ask, why would they want them to encourage individual initiatives? Go ahead.
To keep them divided, so they can, to make them, just speak for themselves.
Yeah, keep going, give me more.
To keep them from being a nation as one, and so they know they won't, come against the oppressor.
They don't want them to come back and fight. Because when they were together, they was whooping they behind. They weren't able to fight with them Native Americans. The only reason why they was able to take over was because they divided them, had them beefing with each other. And this was just another way to do that, through paper. Because if you're going to be individuals and not a community, if you're a community, you do what's best for the community. If you're an individual, you do what's best for yourself. So you're not going to fight, because if you get a handful of people that's doing good in this land allotment, a few people doing good, especially those that have the authoritative abilities, I'll put it like that. You let a few of those people, like the shop, I don't know what they like, the chief, like maybe not necessarily the chief, but like some of the people that just had a voice, a higher than normal voice in the community than the average person. You let them, or you propagate somebody up to have that voice, right? You get them land and give them stuff and get them a little bit of power in that community. Now they're gonna keep the Native Americans docile, because if they want to fight, they're gonna have to give up what they had. That made them into an individual and not a part of the community. So like when they oppress you, that's why they'll give certain people money, like they'll give the athletes money, they'll give, entertainers money, they'll give them some money because the first time we want to go and fight and do something, who's the people that try to tell us to calm down and settle ourselves? Your damn entertainers, your basketball players, your preachers. They tell you to calm down because they already getting fed from America. And if you rise up, then what's gonna happen is they're gonna lose what they already have. Right? It was in the Bible. You know that, right? The Pharisees coming up against Christ, they didn't want to lose what they was given by the Romans. That's why they sold Christ. If anybody can find that precept for me, I'd appreciate it. But it was talk about when they didn't want to they gave up Christ because they didn't want to lose what the Romans gave them. Right? This is all biblical. This happened in the time of Christ. This happened in the Apocrypha, at the time of the Maccabees. Happened all over. You had people that had certain power and privileges, just like the one brother who, I think it was I can't think of his name, but there was another brother that came up against him, was trying to sell him back to the oppressors, right? And the dude, he killed him. There was another brother. He killed him because he tried to get him sold back to him and to follow the oppressor instead of following, the Most High, right? The act facilitated assimilation. They would become more Euro-Americanized as the government allowed the reservation Indians adapted to a subsistence farming, the primary model at that time. Native Americans held specific ideologies pertaining to tribal land. To them, the land and earth were things to be valued and cared for. It represented the plants and animals that produced and sustained life and embodied their existence and identity, and was part of their environment of belonging. In contrast to most of their white counterparts, they did not see the land from an economic standpoint. They just thought it was the land is what sustains you and keeps you alive. But devils, they saw it as economic, right? But many Native Americans began to believe they had to adapt to majority culture in order to survive. They would have to embrace these beliefs and surrender to the forces of progress. They were to adopt their values in the dominant society and would see land as real estate to be bought and developed. They learned how to use their land effectively in order to become prosperous farmers, as they were inducted as citizens of the country, and they would shed those of their discourses and ideologies that were presumed to be uncivilized, and exchange them for ones that allowed them to become better industrious, self-supporting citizens, and finally rid themselves of the need for government supervision. So they were thinking to themselves that if they come and be assimilated, they don't need government supervision on what they're doing anymore. They shedded all of their cultures and took on, the oppressor's culture. This is the provisions of the Dawes Act. A heifer will receive a grant of 160 acres. A single person or orphan over 18 years of age will receive a grant of 80 acres. And a person under age 18 will receive 40 acres each. The allotments will be held in trust by the U.S. government for 25 years. Eligible Native Americans have 4 years to select their land. Afterward, the selection will be made for them by the Secretary of the Interior. So they have 4 years. They had to go and select the part of land that they want, which would divide them up because they select the land. They may not get the land that they want that's trying to go close to the community of their people. So they may be separated out. Because what if a Choctaw wanted this particular land and a Cherokee wanted this part? Now they're away from their tribe. So the way that operated best at that time was, they all had their individual tribes, but then in times of war, they'll come together and they'll fight for the oppressor. But now they all assimilated, they all, divided. So now the primary culture is the oppressor's culture. Every member of the bands or tribes receiving a land allotment is subject to laws of the state or territory in which they reside. Every Native American who receives a land allotment and has adopted the habits of civilized life lives separate and apart from the tribe. So they gotta live separate and apart from their tribe in order to be considered civilized. It's bestowed with United States citizenship. So that's how they get a citizenship if they leave their tribe, right? Like I said, it was to divide them up, make them individualized. They give individual benefits so that you no longer want to be seen as the group because the group doesn't get those benefits, right? The same thing he did with the they did the welfare system, and they made it so if you had a man living in your house, you can't collect welfare, so that automatically put women against the man. Get him out of the house so I can receive these benefits, right? All right. It's bestowed with United States citizenship with or without any manner impairing or otherwise affecting the right of any such Indian to tribal or other property. So they were able to become full citizens, basically. The Secretary of the Interior could issue rules to ensure equal distribution of water and for irrigation among the tribes, and provided that no other appropriation or grant of water by any riparian proprietor should be authorized or permitted to damage or any other riparian proprietor. So he can put rules to do it, but other people, they couldn't go with the. So if like, say if this person that's over this land, they couldn't. The person that's like the white person in control of this part, they didn't go against each other. So this only applied to this part of the land, and this part, these rules apply to this part of the land. That's what it's basically saying. Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Seminole, Miami, and Peoria in Indian Territory. It did not apply to these territories, the Dawes Act. So down in Peoria and all of these different lands, they did not apply. Osage and Sauk and Fox in Oklahoma, any of the reservations, Seneca Nation of New York, a strip of territory in the state of Nebraska adjoining the Sioux Nation, Red Lake Ojibwe Reservation, the Osage tribe of Oklahoma. Provisions were later extended to Wea, Peoria, Kaskaskia, and Piankashaw, and Western Miami tribes by the Act of 1889. Allotment of these lands, of the lands of these tribes were mandated by the Act of 1891, which amplified a provision of the Dawes Act. These are the amendments for it. 1891 allowed for pro rata distribution when the reservation did not have enough land for each individual to receive allotments in original quantities, and provided that where land is only suitable for grazing purposes, such land be allotted in double quantities. So, let me see here. Dictionary. Right. This will provide a proportion according to a certain rate. So this was saying proportion. So if they didn't have the land, they gave it into proportion to what, like, so basically they gave them less land than they even said they were going to give them. So now, if it has some for grazing purposes, they gave it to them. So now they would say it's double the quantity of what it was, and it wasn't. So it established criteria for inheritance and does not apply to Cherokee outlet. Now, that's the provisions of the Curtis Act. The Curtis Act of 1898 extended to the provisions of the Dawes Act to the 5 civilized tribes in Indian Territory. It did away with the self-government, so they couldn't govern themselves anymore, including tribal courts, because what they would have is their own court system. How they, if somebody does something illegal, they get to prosecute them the way that they see fit. They got rid of all of their what you would call sovereign entity. All of that was gone. It authorized the Laws Commission to make determination of members when registering tribal members. So it allowed, so only the people that were in charge of this act, that were, the government officials, they were the ones that to make determination of whether or not they're going to be on this Dawes Act to get land. And of course, they were being paid and bought off. So that's why they allowed certain people to get in and get this land. The Burke Act of 1906 amended the sections of the Dawes Act dealing with U.S. citizenship, Section 6, and the mechanism for issuing allotments. The Secretary of Interior could force the Native American allottee to accept title for the land. So now, if they wanted to have all the land, they would make them accept the title for this particular land. U.S. citizen was granted unconditionally upon receipt of land allotment. The individual did not need to move off the reservation to receive citizenship. Land allotted to Native Americans was taken out of trust and subject to taxation. So of course that's why they didn't want them to be sovereign, because if they were sovereign, they didn't pay taxes. So now they knew that now they had to be taxed on this land. So why do you think? So somebody break this down. Why do they want them to get taxed on it? Give me the whole thing. Go ahead.
So they can take over the land, basically like the base gentrification. Or are they going like utility they do they offer old labor like a little bit of money for a house. And basically to make the family that drive like you say in Nashville, like everything doubled up down there. So it make everybody move out of town.
Yeah, you own it, because you mentioned the part I wanted to hear though. What happens if you can't pay your taxes?
You gotta go.
Exactly. So they forced them to become citizens. They didn't have to go to the land. It sounded sweet, but what happened is, remember, they're not able, like the Native Americans, they don't have where they live at. There aren't jobs there. There's a little spot in Montana that's like the size of this parking lot, full of Native Americans, and I'm talking about they is like living in a third world country in America. I mean, it's bigger than the size of the apartment, literally, but it's not, the size of the parking lot, but it's tiny. And it's like a bunch of them living there. Like they're too poor to even leave. Just imagine, you that damn poor, you can't even leave poverty. You too poor to leave poverty. Just think about that for a second. You can't catch a Greyhound, you don't have the money for a Greyhound. The nearest store is an hour driving away. So you ain't walking there unless you shoot. I mean you can, but boy, you talk about a whole day's walk, right? Maybe a couple of days. So they're literally that poor, man. Just what they did, the effects of this. The effects of the Dawes Act were destructive on Native American sovereignty, culture, and identity since it empowered the U.S. government to legally preempt the sovereign. This is like five things it was made them able to do. Legally preempt the sovereign right of Indians to define themselves. So they made it like they made it the way on paper, basically, uh, what it meant to be a Native American. So on paper, this is what it means to be Native American, not what the Native Americans say it is to be a Native American. Implement the spacious notion of blood quantum as a legal criteria of defining Indian. So you saying that you one of, remember how much it said, like 8,196 of a damn Cherokee. You ain't got to trace that back. How the hell you know you one of 8,196? How you know? You know that's so damn far back. You talking in the what? The 1300s? The hell? Maybe even 1,000. You talking way back. They go back to 8,196. They were basically they wasn't even there. The settlers, the Caucasians weren't even there to even be able to make somebody 8,196 blood of the Cherokee. Don't even make damn sense, right? Institutionalized divisions between full bloods and mixed bloods. So some of the ones that got a little bit of, it might be black and Native American, they made them go against each other. But you know who wasn't against each other? The $5 Indians. They was not against each other. Detribalized a sizable segment of the Indian population. So now they got rid of their tribalization. They took away their community, right? So now they're not fighting for the community. They're fighting for self. Legally appropriate vast tracts of Indian land. So they legally made it so that they can appropriate, just give out whoever they please a large amount of Indian land. All right. The federal government initially viewed the Dawes Act as such a successful democratic experiment that they decided to further exploit the use of blood quantum laws and the notion of federal recognition as a qualified means for dispensing other resources and services such as healthcare and educational funding to Native Americans long after its passage. Under Dawes, land parcels were dispersed in accordance to perceived blood quantum. Indigenous people labeled full-blooded were allocated relatively small parcels of land deeded with trust patents over which the government retained complete control for a minimum of 20-25 years. So the people that were labeled full-blooded, they gave them smaller lands to them. So the more blood you have that was Native American, they gave you smaller land. And then the government had a minimum of 25 years, they had complete control over it. Yet those who were labeled mixed blood were deeded larger and better tracts of land. So it was good to be one of 8,196 because you're going to get the most amount of land and the best land. With patents and the fee simple, which means complete control, but also forced to accept U.S. citizenship and relinquish tribal status, which they didn't care because they weren't Native American. They didn't relinquish anything. Right? They didn't relinquish anything. So they just said, okay, yeah, we're not gonna go to no more powwows. We're gonna just sit back and chill in our mansions. Right? While the dog, let me see here. Additionally, Native Americans who did not meet the established criteria as being full blood or mixed blood were effectively detribalized being disposed of their American and Indian identity and displaced from their homelands, discarded into the nebula of American otherness. So now the ones that they didn't want to meet that established criteria, i.e. the ones that didn't buy them out, they were put into as they were just Americans now. They were no longer Native Americans or Aborigines. While the Dawes Act is typically recognized as a primary instigation of divisions between tribal and detribalized Indians. The history of detribalization in the United States actually precedes Dawes. So they've been trying to detribalize them for, hundreds of years. So the Dawes Act ended Native American communal holding of property, with cropland often being privately owned by families or clans, by which they had ensured that everyone had a home and a place in the tribe. This was a community, right? The act was the culmination of American attempts to destroy tribes and their governments and open Indian lands to settlement by non-Indians and to development by railroads. See, we didn't know anything. Railroads was doing big during this time, right? This is how goods were getting from East Coast to West Coast and back, right? And they wanted to detribalize them, make it so that they're fighting, so now they can build railroads on that land. That was like, the thing about that time. That was the time of that railroad. It was laying the track for the railroad, and that was black and Native Americans building that railroad, right?
What's lucky?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thinking about how the Labor Day got started, the unions, that's why the railroad got built and stuff like that. Okay, we don't need no more railroad workers, none of that now. So they pretty much went, took over, took over, and they'll go to land through our railroads. They're kind of like where the Labor Day thing started because of the whites are like kind of want to take over.
Well,
they want to take the place of the poor whites want to take over something like that, or
Labor Day started because of all of the unions, because black people were more highly skilled than white people were. We were more like at doing just everything. We were more highly skilled at doing it, and they paid us less for it. So whites got together and made unions so that they can, get some of that power back. That's basically where it all comes from. They wanted to get that power back because we were better than them, like we always are. We're always better than them. But they wanted to get seen that, and they wanted to keep their jobs and everything like that. So that's where Labor Day came from. All right. So in 1890, Dawes himself remarked about the incidence of Native Americans losing their land allotments to settlers. I never knew a white man to get his foot on an Indian's land who ever took it off. So now they taking their land, man. The amount of land Native hands the amount of land in Native hands rapidly depleted from 750 million acres to 78 million acres by 1900. So they lost about half of their land in 10 years. The remainder of the land once allotted to appointed natives were declared surplus and sold to non-native settlers as well as railroad and other large corporations. Other sections were converted to federal parks and military compounds. The concern shifted from encouraging private native land ownership to satisfying the white settlers' demand for larger portions of land. Given the conditions of the Great Plains, the land granted to most allottees was not as sufficient for economic viability of farming. Divisions of land among heirs upon the allottees' deaths quickly led to land fractionalization. So it kept getting fragmented because, you know, it went to the heirs or whatever, and it wasn't, they couldn't do anything with prairie land. You know what I mean? Like certain, like you go out there to like um, the Dakotas and Nebraska, there's not much you can do out there, right? And the only thing you can really do is like have, you know, cows and stuff like that. But you know, do you know what it is? You know how much money it costs to have a cow? We don't even think about these things. You got to feed, like, you can buy a cow right now, I think for like 500 to 1,000, like a baby cow, 500 to $1,000, right? And then you got to feed that thing every day. Or you got to have a land that it can eat on, right? But you have to have so much land per cow. And if it keeps getting fractioned up, nobody can, you know, everybody got an acre. Nobody can do anything with that land. Only thing you have is what, one cow, maybe? But probably in a month, you probably eat up all the grass that's there in the acre. So now you can't do nothing with it. It's too small. And it's the part of land that nobody wants. You can't grow anything on, right? So most allotment land, which can be sold after a statutory period of 25 years, was eventually sold to non-native buyers at bargain price. They got them, man. They got them for a steal. Additionally, land deemed to be surplus beyond what was needed for allotment was open to white sellers, though the profits from the sales of these lands were often invested in programs meant to aid the Native Americans. So they said that the profits they got for this were supposed to aid them, right? Over the 47 years of the Act's life, Native Americans lost about 90 million acres of treaty land, or about 2/3 of the 1887 land base. About 90,000 Native Americans were made landless. So they just took all that stuff. Go ahead.
Is that basically how like they ended up on the brothers ended up on reservation? They took out California and everything.
Well, they already were on reservations, but they had other land outside of the reservations. The reservations was kind of like the projects. See what I'm saying? But they had land outside of the projects that they can grow stuff on. But they took all of that land and made it so they only can be on the projects. You get what I'm saying? So just imagine, like right now in the ghetto, you live in the projects, but you got land in Clayton County, right? But now they gave you part that nobody lives on, nobody wants to be there. You can't do nothing with it. See what I'm saying? I know Georgia is different because you can do some planning and stuff like that in Georgia, but just imagine this is in the Dakota. You know what I'm saying? You up there where there's not much you can do with anything. And they don't give you the part of the land that people want that's good for commerce. They don't give you that part of the land. They don't get like Memphis. Memphis is like the hub for like everything going across the country. Memphis is like the hub, right? They don't give you Memphis. They give you somewhere in the middle of Kansas, right? I can give you a city, but you don't even know the name. You don't even know where it's at. Shawnee, Kansas. You don't know where that's at. But they got places set up in all these different cities, but you don't even know that that's where they would give them that land. But then over time, they just got it right back from them. So 25 years they held it. They didn't give it to them. And then when they got the land, now they subject to being taxed on it, on land that you so basically it's like you already don't have a job, right? And America gives you a car, right? but you got a payment on that every month. You don't have a job, so what's gonna happen? You're gonna lose that car. You get a house, you're gonna lose that house. Because they keep you away from places where the jobs are. So you lose everything that you had. You can't do nothing with it. All they gave you a liability, basically. And then when they took it from you, they sold large quantities because like you can't do nothing, you can't do anything with a small piece of land that doesn't have anything. But you can do stuff with larger pieces of land. You know what I'm saying? You can put an amusement park on it, or you know what I'm saying? You can do something with it because it's large, even though it's nothing there that you can get natural resources wise. You can put houses there, you can put, you know, whatever. But if your land is so small, you can put 2 houses on it. You're talking $100 a month, $20 a month for somebody to lease your land. You're not talking much money, right? And then and then it's not worth it economically to lease it just for, you know, those 2 people. But if you got, instead of, you know, you had 1 acre, your brother had 1 acre, they took all your land from the whole family because nobody can pay the taxes on it. And now it's 100 acres. Now we can put a whole housing development on this and we can make real money. So that's what they did, man. It's economics involved in it. All right. So did that answer your question, Slotty? Okay. So that's kind of how that works, man. It's just ways to take whatever they wanted, man. For real. That's the only thing there was. It was just take money, take whatever they had. Let's see here. Anything else I want to bring out here? Let me see here. The reduction of sovereignty. I'm gonna read a little bit of this and we're gonna close it out. The allotted lands of Native Americans determined to be incompetent by the Secretary of Interior were automatically leased out by the federal government. So if they felt as though you were incompetent, right, they would just take your land. It would take you out of that trust status. Like out of that 25 years, they would hold it for you. And then if you were deemed incompetent, they would just take it. Boy, I swear the white man is the devil, boy.
That's right.
Damn devil. God, man, this is insane. So they would just take your land. So for nearly 100 years, the consequences of federal Indian allotments have developed into the problem of fractionalization. As the original allottees die, their heirs receive equal, undivided interest in allottees' lands. And successive generations, smaller and divided interest descend to the next generation. Fractionated interest in an individual Native American allotted land continue to expand exponentially with each new generation. So they gave them smaller and smaller pieces of land. Today, there are approximately 4 million owner interest in the 10 million acres of individually owned trust lands. So there's only 10 million acres left out of 150 million. But you got 4 million owner interest, people interested in it. A situation of the magnitude of which makes management of trust assets extremely difficult and costly. For these 4 million interests can expand to 11 million interests by the year 2030 unless an aggressive approach to fractionation is taken. There are now single pieces of property with ownership interests that are less than 0.0000001% or 1/9 million of the whole interest, which has an estimated value of 0.004 cent. So it's not even a cent. Economic consequences of fractionation are severe. Some recent appraisal studies suggest that when a number of owners of a tract of land reaches between 10 and 20, the value of that tract drops to zero. Highly fractionated land is for all practical purposes worthless. So it makes anything that you want to do practically for it worthless because it's too small. You can't do something with, you know, 4 feet of land, 4 square feet of land. What you gonna do with that? Not a damn thing. You can barely put one plant there. So it's that fractionated. So, all right. Anybody got any questions on that? Anything? Anybody want to bring out?
So I can serve I mean,
Go ahead.
kind of serve I mean, Shalom, Lord in Christ, just sit kind of concept. You want to say real heavy class, you know, wow, what's in Christ.
No sweat, no sweat. Anybody else? All right. With that, pass the class over to Priest and Officer ISUPK.
Trumpets. Okay. Talking about this. Here we go. This is ISUPK's career announcements. We're at ISUPK start out 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Room for a new brother and sister. When a new brother and sister come to the school, they're on limits for 6 months. They're here to be saluted only. They're here to save themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is commandments. Make sure you pay your tithes too. You know what I'm saying? 10% go to the Lord, wherever your earnings is. It's in the book of Numbers, chapter 18, verse 21, the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 8 to 10. Ma'ashra, that means 10 in Hebrew. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Give to the church department and teacher. Priest fund. Bureau offer a priest not mandatory, whatsoever amount you like to give. The next holy convocation is going to be the Feast of the Memorial blowing the trumpets. It's going to be the first day of the 7th month. It's going to be September 25th, Sunday, sundown. You can also find this in the book of Leviticus. The book of Leviticus, chapter 23 through 24 to 25. Remind Akim and Wakim to check the bulletin board in the hallway. If any brother wants to be true with the school, start wearing all black boots, shirt, pad, headband, and a scarf. And make sure you do this address every time you head to the school. Help be the algorithm. With that, we'll give a walk-her salute to the teacher. Min Israel, Amay Sabat, Amay, Barak, Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai Baratah.
Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai Baratah.
What I just see you in the Lashon Kadash is, may the Most High in the name of Christ bless you. Yah Yam the top mean hands down. Class is this.